The FBI believes former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton should face charges for allegedly emailing highly sensitive classified docs through a private server. It sounds familiar to Hillary Clinton. According to the New York Post, high-ranking FBI officials are questioning why the Biden administration shelved the case, with Trump's Justice Department now digging into whether that decision was politically motivated. Joining to discuss this and much more is General Michael Flynn, retired U.S. Army, former National Security Advisor, and co-author of The Citizen's Guide to Fifth-Generation Warfare. With decades of intelligence and combat experience, he is here to break down the latest. General Flynn, thank you so much for making it today. I'm so excited to have you. Man, a lot's happened since we last spoke.
And thanks for being patient too, Christy, and for everything that you're doing for your great audience and for the country, honestly. I mean, yeah, wow, what a busy day. I'm actually in Washington, D.C. I come up here periodically to just hold some meetings and to stay engaged in everything going on with what the Trump administration is trying to do here. Very, very important times. And yeah, what you just outlined there with John Bolton, former national security advisor to President Trump, as well as the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. So he's had some pretty significant duties and responsibilities in his certainly his government career. If they determine that what the allegations are to be true, and I can't imagine that the FBI is doing this because this is not a weaponized FBI like it was under Obama or under Biden. So, and then of course today, President Lee, the newly elected president of South Korea, is here. And for those that are paying attention, President Trump put out a very strong statement this morning on Truth Social, which he's been very transparent about. And in this case, we've got let's just say roughly 25,000 troops over in the Republic of South Korea, and they've been there since really the end of the Korean War for the most part. And we pay a giant share of the bill. And the Republic of Korea is, they're one of the top 10 economies in the world, and they're really getting away with not having to pay for all of the presence of all these military forces that are over there for us to provide them security. So I think Trump is right to do that, and he raised that same issue when he was in his first administration. He's just making sure that this new president understands that, President Lee, who does have socialist tendencies. So I think we're going to have to watch to see how this particular relationship plays out, because the alignment by this new administration in the Republic of Korea toward China is much stronger than the previous administration. And this guy has also jailed the previous president that he just defeated. So anyway, there's a lot going on. That's part of the conversation that Trump is going to have with President Lee. But back to John Bolton and all these investigations. I mean, there's going to be.
Actually, first thing I want to ask about that, General Flynn, is it's maddening enough for me to watch legacy media and how they're acting so shocked and appalled that this could be happening. And here's your evidence that we're an authoritarian government and weaponization. It's maddening enough for me, but for someone who was persecuted, had the weight of the government weaponized against you, it has to be soul-sucking to watch this.
Yeah, I mean, as we're going through this, because this is and Lee Smith, a good friend of mine who you might know, Lee Smith wrote a book called The Permanent Coup. Okay, The Permanent Coup. That's what we are going through. Okay, there was an attempted coup after the 2016 election. There was an actual coup in 2020 where they took over our government and they put a Otto Penn Joe, Uncle Joe, in the presidency for 4 years. And that evidence is going to come out in spades, believe me. And then they really attempted it again in 2024. And even that evidence will come out at a certain point in time to show how through some really very smart people were able to overcome the rig again. Like Trump says, he likes to say sometimes, too big to rig. So, yeah, there's a lot of soul searching for all Americans right now as to what is going on in our country? What are we going through? And what we're going through is an infiltration by, you can call it whatever ism you want, but a group of people that are anti-American, that want to see our country join the globalist movement that is ongoing. It's all over Europe right now. Canada is one of the worst, closest neighbors. Scheinbaum in Mexico is right there aligned with them. People that down Luna down in Brazil. So there's a globalist body of nations, and there is a group of people that are running that, and they want the United States of America. And there are people in this country, the Obama administration, Obama himself, Biden and his administration. Not Biden so much because he really was not there in damn near the whole 4 years. But the people around Biden want to join this globalist movement, and we just can't have that. It moves us away from having our own culture, having our own borders, having our own country, having our own system of government, having our own constitutional republic. That's the big picture. That's where the tension is. It's globalism versus, and I'll use the word nationalism, which, the left has made, use the word nationalism. It's a bad word. It's not a bad word. It means that you're patriotic, you love your country, and you want it to be the United States of America based on our Constitution. That's all nationalism is. It doesn't some crazy thing that these people have made it out to be. So I think your audience, and frankly the American people, need to understand that we are facing that, and that means that these people want to move us towards a Marxist form of government. Very real. All you got to do is look at what's going on up in New York City right now with Zoran Mamdani, who, by all rights, he could end up becoming the New York City mayor.
Yeah, and he can't even bench press. We'll have that story later. But General Flynn, curious, I mean, obviously you're still passionate about being the national security, about getting away from globalism, and, seeing as all and more is coming to light about Russian collusion, which is really at the root of what sabotaged your original role in the Trump administration as a national security advisor. With Rubio serving as an interim, like if the president were ever to come to you and ask you to return to that critical role after everything you've been through, is that something you would consider, or are you happy with the positions you have in DC as it is now?
Well, I mean, I like what I'm able to do now because I have a lot more flexibility, and I don't have to worry about the talking points that are issued in the morning that what the government's going to do or not to do. And I think we have a really good team in there that the president has brought in, and he's stuck with them, which is good. I think that's a strong thing because he learned a lot of lessons from his first administration, because there was a lot of pressure to get rid of different people, last couple of months here. Would I consider it out? Yeah, I absolutely would consider it. It's just not something right now. I think the direction and frankly, like you always, when you're in government, especially at the levels that we're talking about, the president, the White House, the Oval Office, at that level, you don't just rely on people inside the government. If you did, you would fail. And you would rely on people outside the government who have a level of expertise and knowledge and insight that can help and that are willing to help. And that's kind of the role that I'm playing right now. And I actually love being in that kind of a role because it allows me, like I said, great flexibility. I am very humbled by anyone that reaches out to say, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And I'm not here looking for anything. What I'm here is to try to help save our country from this group that wants to turn our country into a Marxist socialist form of government. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for most Americans to fathom that, because the propaganda media that we've had for forever has just been pounded it into at least half. Think about it. Whatever the numbers were, that voted for Kamala Harris. 35 million people in our country voted for Kamala Harris, or 40 million people. You think about that and you say, they must have not been paying attention to anything, right? And
either that or those numbers aren't accurate, which is also a very real possibility.
I just had this conversation with somebody here, because that's one of the things that I am involved in. Is I'm involved in election integrity issues for the country, and we just had a great conversation. And I honestly think that if we had a very fair election system put in place, the Democrat Party would lose everywhere. They would lose everywhere because the Democrat Party is dead. It is gone. It has now been usurped or taken over by the Democrat Socialist Party of America, which means Marxism. So Mamdani, as an example, AOC, who's backing him, they are card-carrying members of the Democratic Socialist Party of America, the DSPA. I mean, that's real. It's very real. It's been around since the 60s. So Americans don't know this stuff because we think Democrats and Republicans, big government, little government, lower taxes, higher taxes. No, we have completely shifted to a different set of competitive ideologies, one of which is whether or not you love America and you believe in America and you believe in the Constitution. And we can argue and debate about how that should take shape. And another is no Constitution, and we move towards socialism and Marxism. Those are the two ends of the spectrum, and that's where we stand right now in 2025. And Donald J. Trump has 3.5 years left to do as much as he can to really, to destroy or crush the deep state, to get this out of our system of, it's like we have a sickness in our government, because when we say the deep state is made up of a lot of these people, a lot of them. I'm telling you that, here in Washington, D.C., probably 3/4 to, I would say even closer to 85 to 90% of our government, of our federal government, are part of this deep state. And that means, it's not just a few people at the top. It's not just a dozen people. It is damn near the entirety, because of the culture that has been created for the last, 20 years here, right? I mean, Trump's first administration, he did great just doing the things that he did. But look at how much of a beating he took and all the people around him took. So as if he didn't have to take a beating, imagine what this man could do, not just for the United States of America, but for the world. Look at what he's already done for world peace in various parts of the world. India and Pakistan as an example, right? So, and what he's trying to do in Europe, what he did in the Middle East. So all that said, I want people to understand that this country is not going to just float along and everything's going to be rosy unless we, the people, take a greater responsibility and get involved. Basically, we are citizens in this country. We have a responsibility to be good citizens, and we need to get involved to be even better citizens. And that's my sort of call to action.
Yeah, always the call to action to get involved locally where you can make the biggest impact. But as you said, this deep state has been a sickness on our nation and allowed us to move further into globalism and just left us control. So Bolton has been raided. Who do you think should be next, or who do you think's on the radar?
I'd be fine if it was Obama, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, but I think we're getting close to those individuals where we're going to start to see, some indictments come down for these people. I think the same is going to happen to Bolton. I think Bolton's going to have to. They must have him dead to rights, as they do Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Obama, Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's a number of people down that totem pole. Susan Rice, maybe even people in Trump's former Trump administration, when he was the 45th president. Could have people like, Rosenstein's name hasn't popped up. Sally Yates is another one. I mean, so there's a lot of people. And one thing I'd leave you with is that there are whistleblowers that have come forward and they're doing their constitutional duty to basically get in there and say, hey, they observed these activities, and these activities in some cases are crimes. And so the thing about Bolton in the lead up to the investigation of some of this other stuff with Russiagate, all of a sudden, lo and behold, there's John Bolton sharing information, right? So these are the kinds of things that they're going to find when they start to really dig into these things that frankly, Tulsi Gabbard, good for Tulsi. There's no gray area when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, is black or white, right? That you're right or you're wrong. And in her case, she's the right person at the right moment in U.S. history. And thank God that Trump put her into that role, because I'm not sure had he put somebody else in that role, they would have done the digging that she's been doing. So good on her for doing what she's doing to expose not just corruption, but criminal activity. I mean, these are crimes that were These are conspiratorial crimes to subvert the United States of America. That's what they are. Very, very serious charges. And so somebody's going to have to be held to account for these.
Yeah, well, I think we're all very encouraged that if you were asked, you would greatly consider getting back into the fold with people like Gabbard, potentially in your former NSA position or whatever they would ask you to get involved with. We know you're there. We feel better about you being in DC. But just to wrap up again, because we are on Lindell TV, which we're super passionate about election integrity, do you think that we'll get to see any more being done moving forward than Trump's already been putting out there as far as getting rid of the machines and mail-in ballots?
Yeah, good. And I think I'm a big fan of Mike Lindell, and I really, Mike has been a huge hero for this country. So to answer your question, yes, I think if people felt like the exposure of what we have learned from Russiagate is a big deal, and it is. It's essentially as both Tulsi and Trump said, they staged a coup. They committed treason. Those were their words. I think what's going to be even bigger is what is going to be exposed for the theft of the 2020 election, and then the setup of J6. I think what people are going to see come out from that is just going to be outrageous. And the American people have every right to be upset and have every right to demand that we have our elections completely cleaned up and we run a very fair, and I think that's what's going to happen.
You anticipate that those being the next bombshells sometime soon?
I do. Yes, I do. Absolutely. I think we're going to see something come out on the 2020 election, an election integrity type of report or election system report, and it's going to touch on the 2020 election. It's going to touch on a lot of things, and there were people directly involved in undermining our ability to be able to have a free and fair vote, to include foreign countries.
Wow. Well, General Flynn, I know you've been very generous with your time. We got to let you get back to what you're doing in DC, but make sure you keep us in the loop and let us know when we can anticipate more action, because that's what everyone wants. We just want to see the action. It's like, we know a lot. Let's see things happen. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Christy. God bless. Thanks for your patience.